So I think we'll go ahead and get started, everybody. It's so good to see you all out there. I'm Dan Lewis. I'm the executive director of the Denver Metro Chamber Leadership Foundation, and I'm here with our whole team. But more importantly, I'm here with the 9 News Leader of the Year finalists, whom you'll get to meet in just a moment. Thank you all for joining us, for making time for this conversation. We do this once a year, and it's always one of our favorite events, mostly because the 3 finalists are always amazing, and this year will not disappoint. For those of you who are new to the Denver Metro Chamber Leadership Foundation, I also want to give you a very special welcome. Our mission is to educate and inspire people who want to make a difference as leaders in the community. And I would say this year, while it has been like no other, is really an opportunity for civic leaders like the 3 folks we're going to be talking with today to really demonstrate what it takes to be a leader under some very challenging conditions. And you'll see that their resiliency and their ability to engage others for the common good has really been outstanding in this year. So I hope this conversation today brings you a little bit of inspiration as we get to meet them and learn a little bit more about what they've done to get here. Events like this for the Leadership Foundation are an opportunity for us to go a little bit deeper, to shine a light on the great work, on leaders who've made an impact, and of course that is part of our mission, to inspire. If you are inspired by what you hear today, we also invite you to connect with a larger world through social media. We hope you'll share some of what you're hearing today. We have a hashtag, HowCOLeads. That's hashtag HowCOLeads. And if you have any comments or anything you want to share out, please use the hashtag so we can stay connected to you. We would also like to channel the inspiration that you get today into voting for the 9 News Leader of the Year. Of course, in my book, all 3 of our finalists today are winners. They've already achieved so much, and they're so gracious to share that with all of us. But we do need to pick a 9 News Leader of the Year, and that is a voting process that you all can be involved in if you're an alum of the Leadership Foundation, if you are a member of the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce, or if you are a member of B Civic, you have a vote. We keep track through your email contact and one vote per member, but you are invited to vote. It is your civic duty to help us pick the 9 News Leader of the Year. We will announce the winner of the voting process, your selection, live at our Leading Colorado Luncheon, which will be virtual this year. It's happening on March the 10th. And I invite you all back to join us this year. Because it's virtual, everyone is welcome to join in that event. It is made possible by a tremendous group of sponsors led by our friends at BBVA. Andy Wykstra's here. You'll hear from him in just a moment. We're so grateful to BBVA. We're also very grateful to 9 News for their partnership. They produced all the videos, and of course, their name is on this award for a good reason, for their civic engagement. We'd like to thank our visionary sponsors who each present one of our finalists at the event. That's KeyBank, Molson Coors Beverage Company, and TIAA. And finally, we have galvanizing sponsors who really underwrite and make possible the entire event. That's BKD, Delta Dental of Colorado, Denver Business Journal, IMA, and Suncor Energy. Following this moderated conversation, you're going to have a unique opportunity to get to know each of the finalists and maybe some of the other folks here in the room a little bit more closely. We're going to allow you to break out into rooms with one of them to have a conversation, and you'll get the download on how to do that exactly at the end of the discussion amongst the finalists. So stick with us. If you can stick around for these conversations, we invite you to do so, and very grateful to our team for setting that up. So to kick us off here, I would like to introduce a name and a face that many of you have known from the last several years because of his deep commitment to civic leadership and to the 9 News Leader of the Year program and Leading Colorado. That's Andy Wykstra, who is the CEO Colorado Market at BBVA. And we're thrilled to have you back for a 3rd year. Andy.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you to the Denver Metro Leadership Foundation, and thank you to KUSA 9 News for being such remarkable community partners. BBVA is very proud to once again be associated with this event and as the presenting sponsor. We're all on our own leadership journey, and 2020 certainly threw some new things at us. I think it's safe to say that all of us faced some new leadership challenges and opportunities throughout the year. For my personal journey in 2020, I was reminded once again that no matter how many leadership books we read, no matter how many seminars we attend, good leadership comes down to being genuine, being authentic. Sometimes we make things more complicated than we need to. To me, being a good leader is all about caring, being present for your team, and being genuine. I would like to wish all 3 worthy finalists the very best of luck and thank them for all they have done, both individually and collectively, for our community. And now I have the honor of welcoming our moderator, Steve Staeger from KUSA 9 News. We are thrilled to have him here today to lead us through the conversation with these finalists. Steve, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Andy. I think we all want to see you put on that hat in the background of your shot. If you could possibly do that at one point before the end of the afternoon, we would enjoy it. Thank you all so much for taking some time this afternoon and being involved in all of this. I think this odd format that we're in right now that we all should be pretty used to, but it's still going to seem kind of odd. This world of 2021 that we live in, it's really changed the way that we do business over the last 10 months or so. But it's also, I think, created some opportunities to adapt and change and do things in a different way. And it's also made us, I think, in a way, better leaders. So I'm so glad to see all of you here, up to 96 people in the room right now. Happy to have you along. Before we get started, we want to take a look at a quick video to get to know the 3 finalists.
Hello, my name is Andy Wykstra, and I'm the Colorado Market CEO for BBVA. At BBVA, we want to bring the age of opportunity to everyone. Similarly, creating futures for everyone has been the driving theme for each of the 2021 9 News Leader of the Year finalists. Adeeb Khan, Jesse Ogas, and Lorii Rabinowitz all believe that everyone deserves a voice and an opportunity to succeed. Adeeb is committed to always doing the right thing for his family, his colleagues, and his community. Throughout his career, Adeeb has focused his intense work ethic on providing equal opportunities for all Coloradans.
We're going to encounter people who have different beliefs, whether that be political or religious or whatever it might be. And I think what's most important for us right now is sometimes we need to put the differences aside and focus on doing good. Part of the work that I am involved in is to try and find ways to help more people from different backgrounds be able to access opportunity and prosperity, because there's so much talent in there that's been overlooked because of either historical discrimination or people just having the wrong prejudices in mind, whether it's conscious or unconscious. I grew up in a rural town, and my parents, are villagers from Pakistan who came here. My dad would wake me up ever since I was 7 years old every single morning in the summer and on the weekends to come help him do the work. And so it was part of our family culture that we work. One of the things I've learned is that what we can do is really affect the community around us and focus our efforts on the people who are around us, the nonprofit network that's around us, to really drive change. What my commitment is to be resolute in doing my job and working diligently to help so many individuals who are struggling.
Jesse is committed to advocating for those who are vulnerable, giving a voice to the voiceless. Through integrity and compassion, he has empowered others to lead and build relationships that make our communities stronger.
Helping give a voice to the voiceless is something I'm extremely passionate about. I mean, my own experience, being sexually abused at the hand of a family friend, not being able to speak my truth, not being able to share that. I lived with that, and I still remember how that felt inside. For me, bringing a voice to whatever issue it is brings awareness. And when you raise awareness, people get involved, and that's where change happens. I've always believed that you have to empower your people. You have to listen, because you won't have your finger on the pulse of the organization without being a good listener, without empowering, and without allowing failure. Every step in my life, there have been points of failure for me. But from that failure, I picked myself right back up because I learned, and it made me better. I humbly call myself a leader because I have been privileged to work alongside some amazing individuals. My thing has always been surround myself with people who are smarter than me, who are better than me, because not only can I teach them, but they can teach me, and together we can build an unstoppable team.
Lorii believes in making sure everyone has a seat at the table. She approaches challenges with curiosity, collaboration, and transparency. She brings warmth to her work and inspires those around her to share in a vision for the community.
One of the greatest opportunities that I have had in my life and continue to have is to get to hear people's stories and understand their narratives through their lens. I grew up in a community in Albuquerque, a multicultural community where the majority of my cultural influences were different than those into which I was born. I felt like the cultural influences that I was lucky enough to grow up with really shaped my life, and I still feel like that to this day. But I also now recognize that I haven't and can't fully understand the exact experiences that the closest people to me in my life have lived through. It's important to me to be an ally, to be an accomplice, to be an advocate, and to leverage connections and access in ways that lift and elevate. And I think all too often decisions are made for others instead of asking others what they think and what they would like to see done, and then actually doing that and taking that feedback. If there's not a seat for someone at the table, it's my responsibility to build that seat, to pull out that chair, to bring that voice and make sure that that is happening.
We are proud to once again sponsor the leading Colorado Luncheon, where the 9 News Leader of the Year will be announced live. So cast your votes now for the 9 News Leader of the Year at denverleadership.org/vote.
So that should give you a pretty good idea of who we are talking about today. But please join me in welcoming the 9 News Leader of the Year finalists, Adeeb Khan, Jesse Ogas, and Lorii Rabinowitz. And if you want, you could do the clap thing. It's weird when everybody's on mute, but it still kind of looks cool if you look at the screen when everybody's clapping. All right, all of our leaders are here. Are you all unmuted?
I am now.
Yes.
There we go. Perfect. I always double check. Been doing everything through Zoom lately. We're all experts at this until we actually need to use it, is what I found out. So we would love for all of you to be part of the conversation. So the chat's open. I see a lot of you are using it right now. If you have some questions for our finalists, please drop them in there. We'll use them as we go through this conversation through the rest of the afternoon. I should also let you all know, I have been told that this event is streaming live on 9news.com right now. So you might have some folks who are watching and not in the Zoom. If you aren't, shoot me an email or something. We'll see if we can get your question in to one of the finalists. So again, you'll have an opportunity after this is all said and done to get into a separate room with each of our 3 finalists and ask them some questions on your own, but feel free to drop them in the chat. Let's get started off with a few things. I'm going to start with a couple of just background questions. And Adeeb, let's start with you. So what brought you here to this point, and what led to your passion for the community? And if you could name a few people who inspired you along the way.
Sure. And I just want to say thank you to the Leadership Foundation and congratulations to the other finalists. This is a tremendous honor to be here. And I look at the names on the participant list and I just think of how incredible the audience is and how so many of you have inspired me. For me personally, you know, my inspiration started when I was young. You know, you guys saw that picture of me when I was in second grade. When I was in second grade was the first time I ended up, my parents, as I mentioned in the video, you know, they immigrated from Pakistan, and they both grew up in very small, extremely poor communities. You know, where my mom grew up, she was getting water from a well, and, you know, they were cooking their food on an open fire kind of situation. And so when I was in second grade, I got to spend about 3 months back in Pakistan. And that really opened my eyes to how lucky I had it, and how much opportunity I had being raised in America. And we would go back as a family pretty regularly to Pakistan. And that to me was a lot of what I felt was there are so many people here who don't have any opportunity. And there's really, you know, such poverty that it brings a sense of hopelessness. And so I've always felt really privileged in my life. And that came with a responsibility to try and do my part to serve my community, to try and do my part to help others who may not be as fortunate as I am. And that's where it started. And, you know, being raised in my family with my parents, they were the hardest workers I still ever met. And they made, you know, my dad was the businessman, hard worker. He kind of made himself and established himself. My mom was this kind of loving spiritual force in our family. And so I always felt like I've kind of taken parts of each of them and tried to follow my heart, but use my business acumen. And I feel like that's been really what's led me to where I am now. And, you know, I'm proud to be a first generation high school graduate. I'm proud to be here in Colorado, and I'm proud to be serving my community, and just proud to be part of so many people in this community who are part of what we're trying to do, which is help lift up families and people and build better opportunities for all.
I speak for everyone in the room when we say we're so happy to have you here. Lorii, same question to you. Take us through your leadership journey. What got us to this place and where you are with as far as passion for the community?
Sure, absolutely. I also would like to say thank you so much to 9 News and to the Denver Metro Chamber Leadership Foundation. This is extremely humbling for me, and especially humbling to be alongside Jesse and Adeeb. Huge congratulations to you both. So thank you. I am really lucky to get to continue learning every day, and am so privileged to be in my job inspired, energized, motivated, and taught in ways that I never could have imagined. So it started, my commitment to community, I guess, started when I was young. My parents divorced when I was 9, but we're both very active in community. My mom was a high school teacher, the first Rotarian in New Mexico, who was a public school educator and taught history and English for about 40 years. She also had an Interact Club in which my sister and I participated in volunteering with folks who were experiencing homelessness, food insecurity, participated in Hands Across America. It was a part of our upbringing and a part of the fabric of our lives as we were growing up. My dad was very active in the civil rights movement, marched in the movement, and went on to become a Black history professor at the University of New Mexico. So was exceptionally passionate about social justice and civil rights. And I then was afforded this amazing opportunity in 2 separate households to have varied conversations ongoing about righting the wrongs of an unjust society for hundreds of years, and what was our role in taking action to address that and address those. And I still think that that's so critically important today, which is why I feel really fortunate to get to continue on this journey.
Yeah, I think as a country, we are kind of going through that conversation right now. Jesse, you mentioned a very emotional story in that video, and I don't want to pry too much, but I imagine that had a part in getting you to where you are today.
So I always share with people that it's my experiences throughout my life that have made me the person that I am today. You know, I was very fortunate, and I get emotional. It's who I am. But I was very fortunate. I had my mom, who I just lost to COVID in December, and she truly instilled in me from a very early age integrity, compassion, empathy, always take a risk, and always help others. So when the opportunity came up, it was during Sexual Violence Against Children month, and it happens in April, the same time that Autism Awareness happens. The executive director of the organization at the time said, Jesse, I understand you have a personal connection here and why you're so passionate. So I shared with her, yeah, well, here's my story. And she asked, would you be willing to share this? And you know, it was the first time in my life that anybody had ever asked me, will you share your story? So as you can imagine, all of these things are going through your head. You're vulnerable. Am I going to expose myself? Am I willing to do that? And I thought, I remembered what my mom always said, you know, no hay mal porque bien no venga. There is nothing bad that good can come out of. And so I thought, you know what? Yes, I'm willing to do that. And the intent is that if there are other men out there who have gone through life and have never shared something so personal, something so traumatic, not even to the ones that they love the most, that I wanted them to understand that it's okay. Someone like me has walked that journey, has been through that journey. And unless, as a leader, what I've learned, unless you're willing to put yourself out there so that others can strive for success, you're doing an injustice, right? And so I told my story, and it was the first time in my life that I had men who emailed me or text me and said, Jesse, this is the first time I'm talking about this, but I had the same journey you had. And it was what was so beautiful about that piece, and what comes with leadership, when you inspire others, you allow them to grow, you allow healing to take place, whatever it is. And so, yeah, it was a pretty personal journey, but you know, as leaders, we have to be willing to do that sometimes.
Sounds like a lot of people are incredibly grateful for how vulnerable you are and deciding to share that story. So we really appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about leadership. One of my favorite topics in the world. Lorii, let's start with you. Tell us a moment that defined leadership for you in your life.
I have a lot. I think in answering that question, the first piece is, what kind of leader do I want to be? And I say leader in this way that brings me pause. One of the things we talk about all the time in the Leadership Foundation is leading from where you stand. And I feel like, especially this year, everyone has led and continues to lead and pivot and innovate. And it has been extraordinary to see and to witness and to be a part of. When I think about my own leadership, my hope is that I am a transparent, empowering, inclusive leader, and invite the voices around the table that I was talking about in the video, and really hear those voices and see the people from whom the voices come, and take action on what I learn. Coming back to the journey we were talking about earlier, what a gift it is to learn ongoing. Jesse was talking about failures in his video. I think that that's such a critical piece of that transparency, is admitting failures and looking to them to guide future success. So one specifically that I think of in recent memory is when we launched our return to work strategy, work location strategy at Denver Scholarship Foundation. We went to all of this effort to take feedback and ask questions and gather all of this information. And I delivered it in a staff meeting, and I totally blew it. It was awful. And we were on Zoom, and so I couldn't see anybody's faces, and I couldn't get to read a body language. And so I signed off, and I asked my colleagues, how did that go? And before they could answer, I was getting feedback from team members like, what about this? And what about this? And this didn't make any sense. And so it gave me the opportunity to go back and own that big old mess, correct it, and learn more individually about what folks needed and how we could meet them where they were and where they are at this crazy time.
Gives me hope as a guy who fails all the time that you can learn something from failure. That's spectacular. I love it, Lorii. Thank you. Jesse, how about you? What moment defined you as a leader?
So, oh my gosh, there's many, but I'll tell you one in particular. Moving into this building. So as you can imagine, July 1st, 2019, we did a capital campaign. We raised enough money to buy this building from Jefferson County School District. And being a risk taker that I was like, we're going to make this happen. We're going to be successful. Well, you know, things start moving along, and December 16th, Mortensen and the team start the construction internally after all the abatement had been removed. Then January comes, and you start hearing about COVID in China and Hunan, and you start hearing about all the death and things happening, and then February comes, and we're like, holy mackerel, we're finding our first cases, reported cases in the United States. So by the end of February, my team they're terrified, right? Because they're hearing of closures across the world right now. You know, everything's shutting down, and so inevitably March 13th comes, and I gather my leadership team, and I explain to them, here's what's going on. We're going to get through this. And so we go into, at that time was the big room in this little house, and I have all of our staff are there, and I make the announcement that we're closing our doors this afternoon at 1 o'clock. And there are tears. People are looking at me. Now, you can imagine, I have 108 employees. You're looking directly in their faces and in their eyes, and they're looking to you for hope. They're looking to you for some kind of validation that we're going to be okay. And my commitment to them right then and there was that we're not going to furlough. You're not going to get laid off. We're going to make sure that you keep your health insurance. And we're going to figure out how to provide services to our families, despite having the center closed. And at that point, we also shared that we were creating a food bank. In the event one of our employees came down with COVID, we were ready. We had a little money fund set aside just in the event they needed help with groceries, they needed help with utilities. And so it was so amazing, because what that did is it empowered my team. This is Friday, the 13th. Monday, my team had converted every one of our programs to telehealth, every one of them. And so they were gung-ho. They were, we were hearing from that other service providers, families were losing their services. I was the only one, and my chief clinical officer, Ken Wynn, we were the only two in the entire building, and the phones were ringing off the hook because families were losing services. Employees were being laid off, looking for opportunities. So what we did was we took that moment in time, not only to support our team, to provide that emotional and to provide that support that they needed to ensure that we're going to be okay and have health insurance, but we also grew, and we started serving more families, and other employees started coming to Firefly because they heard about everything that we did above and beyond that other organizations in our realm didn't do, by providing PPP equipment, by ensuring we had the strictest of operations in place to protect not just our staff and our families. It was amazing to watch them become inspired and take it over and convert us so that we could continue business as usual.
I think 2020 defined a lot of us that way. Adeeb, how about you? What moment defined you as a leader?
Yeah, I was going to talk about maybe something more in the past, but I'm going to stick with the COVID theme and just, this year I started at Delta Dental in January. So I was kind of new to the organization, taking on a new role as an executive director, as a senior leader on the company side. And, I was kind of Chicken Little in the office when the virus started happening in China and warning folks. And I don't think anyone really, I don't think any of us knew the severity of what we were facing that early on. But I think it took a little bit of courage and leadership to be able to kind of start raising it in an annoying way to our team to say that this is a major risk that we need to be planning for. I got assigned to lead our health committee as a result of that, which was meant to be making us aware. But in that role, we had to make so many pivots so quickly, and we had to get all of our people home, as many of us did, create the IT support that we needed to ensure team members' safety and health was at a priority. And with that, we launched an emergency fund for our team members. We also gave everyone access to the Calm app for mental health purposes. And then quickly on the foundation side, I hadn't even had a board meeting with my board at this point. But at that point, we wanted to act quickly. And so we shifted $2 million of our funds towards wraparound services in face of COVID relief. And my team, the foundation team, responded quickly. Again, a new leader, making all these drastic changes. But I feel, looking back at it, that the decisions we made were correct. And I feel proud that, for me, taking a lot of time and energy to really understand and assess the situation and taking as much data when data was scarce on what we can predict, what we can expect, what we can do, and being able to be decisive and not saying, let's wait till we get more information. Let's wait till we get more clarity. Instead, let's react and do what comes somewhat natural to us, which is try to reach out, try to help, try to support people who are struggling. And so I feel, looking back at it now, that, maybe at the time it didn't feel like it was decisive, but I think looking back at it now, it was something that we were able to pivot to quickly, and to be able to bring the board along, to be able to bring my CEO along, to be able to bring our team along through that process and kind of put a stake in the ground and say, this is where we're going to go. I'm really proud that we did that, because we ended up getting $2 million in relief within a couple months. We had a lot of applications. Obviously, there's not a need out there. It was outside of what our traditional mission scope is. But I think we were able to provide a lot of relief in the community and do it quickly. And I think that was really critical during that time. So that's one example.
Thank you for that. It's interesting you mentioned the Calm app. Everybody got the Calm app. I downloaded that because I figured I needed to try it out. And there was Matthew McConaughey reading a bedtime story, which was soothing. Weird. I didn't click on it because I thought it was just going to be like, all right, good night, good night, good night. But anyway, let's stay on the topic of 2020, shall we? Since it was the year that none of us will ever forget. Jesse, let's start with you. If you were 2019 Jesse, and you were writing a note to 2020 Jesse, or vice versa, if you were 2020 Jesse writing a note to 2019 Jesse, warning you of what was to come and what you should do, what would you say?
You know what? I would remind myself that with leadership, good leadership takes courage. Good leadership takes integrity. Good leadership takes empathy. Good leadership takes listening skills. And communication, good communication. And so, as leaders looking back, one of the things that I've prided myself is that I've really always focused on being inclusive of all people. I don't care. I am who I am. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. People know me for that. It's not always a good thing, trust me, but it's my DNA, right? And I'm not going to hide that. I'm not going to fight that. I believe that authenticity is so important. So I would remind myself of all of these things that I've learned along the way that were instilled to me by my mother, by tremendous role models that I've had, loving role models that I've had throughout the years, to continue to focus on those less fortunate to make a difference. If anything, any of us can take away from 2020 about inclusivity, is that in our lifetimes, our nation has never seen such a divided people because of the lack of empathy, of all those things I just listed, because of the lack of truth, because of the lack of understanding, because of the unwillingness to listen and to agree to disagree. So I would remind myself to remember everything I've learned, because I'm going to need it in order to get through something that I could have never, ever imagined that we would have ever seen in our lifetimes.
Lorii, what's 2020 Lorii writing to 2019 Lorii?
She's saying, dear Lorii, your life is going to change a lot in 2020, personally, professionally. The decisions that you feel like you oftentimes make with information, data, research, input. You will not have that luxury. You will be working to make decisions in a crazy time of uncertainty, and that makes it that much more important to bring our colleagues together, understand what everyone individually is going through and experiencing, recognize that everyone's journey is individual. You will be addressing topics of trauma caused by senseless murder. You will be addressing topics of uncertainty around job security. And the most important thing that you can do is listen to understand. Communicate, and communicate when you don't have the full story. There is value in saying, we're working on this. We don't have all of the information, but here's what we're thinking about. And your jobs are safe.
I love that. If we could get more people in, say, government to communicate when they're still working on and don't know the answer to the problem, I would love it as a reporter. Adeeb, what does 2020 Adeeb say to 2019 Adeeb, who hasn't even stepped into his new role at his company yet?
Well, first is travel as much as you can, especially with your spouse, and go out to as many dinners as you can while you still have the opportunity to. Those would be fundamentals. I think the big thing for me was, I've got 3 little ones at home. I've got a 7, a 5, and a 1-year-old. And, in many ways, the situation that we're in has been a blessing just for us as a family to be able to spend more quality time together. I've never in my life worked harder than I have this year. And that can do a lot of great things, and you can get a lot of things achieved, but it can also wear you down. And that affects then, your engagement with your family or your engagement with your friends and all of those things. And I think what I would tell myself is invest time in all of those people that you care about and be deliberate about it from day one. Because I think we all understand and value how important human connection, human relationship, and coming together as community is for not only just our whole society, but just our own well-being. And I think for me during this last year, I think on the professional level, what we've achieved as a foundation, what we've achieved as a company, I think we've done a lot of great things. And I really don't have much advice in that area. But I think on the personal level of really embracing all of these moments as an opportunity to create deeper connections with your kids and your spouse and your friends around you. To me, that's something that, we probably lose sight of because of all the stress and the issues that we're dealing with. And it's much more difficult now to make those connections, but it's never been more important. And I think stressing that from an early time in 2020 would have been helpful.
We've all grown to love our home now too. I've really, in a strange way, I actually enjoy being here now. And not that I didn't before, but it's even more fun. I want to go to the chat really quickly. Tim Ryan, who happens to be my boss, first-time caller, long-time listener, he asks, what's the best strategy to bridge the emotional political divide in the country today? And Adeeb, let's start with you.
I mean, I tend to think I don't have the answer, obviously. So if any of you are waiting on pins and needles for the answer to that, I don't have it. But I think what I've become resolved in is the idea that it comes from a quote from Martin Luther King, which is, don't let anyone bring you down to the level of hate. And I think that it's so easy in a virtual world and an online world to resort to these basic human instincts around being mean or hateful or assuming other people are the worst. And I want to distance myself from that, but I also want to combat it with love as an emotion. I think we need that now more than ever. My parents are both Muslims. I come from a Muslim background, and in the Quran, it talks about, people of different backgrounds and different religions. And it says, put down your differences and instead focus your time on competing in good works. And I think as a society, if we were not to be so hung up on the things that separate us and to be not so hung up on our political differences, but we instead work together on addressing homelessness. We work together on helping people get out of poverty. We work together on solving these problems. To me, we would be much better off, not only in terms of our political discourse, but just in terms of us being able to achieve some of the dreams that we hope for. And so for me, it's just us making an individual choice to combat hatred with love and not reinforce it with more hatred. I think that's something that we all can do.
I think so often when we don't agree, we tend to want to argue with people because we want them to come onto our side of whatever the issue is. But we've learned a lot lately about listening to and hearing people out. And maybe if their views seem extreme, that there's value in letting them feel like they're being heard.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, you know, I was a debater in high school. And so I learned when I was in high school how to have a constructive argument. At least I feel like I learned how to do that. And I feel like maybe we don't all know how to do that really well. And we could all practice a little bit of how to disagree with someone in a civil way that's actually getting to an end to get us to expand our horizons and think more rather than try to prove the other person wrong.
Lorii, how about you? Bridging the emotional political divide in the country. What would you do?
I was also going to quote something from HRC that is highlighted in a variety of their materials, which is love conquers hate. And so how can we work together to think about shared values, shared vision, commonality? More often than not, we have love for our families. Is that a start? We have love for people. Is that a start? And so how can we invite participation from people who think differently than we do, and with intentionality, seek that out? So if that's someone with a different background who's had different experiences, and actually lean into the conversation with humility, not looking to win, but instead looking to listen, and somewhere along the line, find some level of shared commitment.
Jesse, you got a solution for the world's problems and the political divide in this country?
Well, man, we could be here for hours. But hey, so here's what I would say. I listen to country western music. I grew up with it, right? And I like it. So if you have a chance, pull up the new song that Tim McGraw and Tyler Hubbard from Florida Georgia Line released. And unbeknownst to me, they did at the our president's celebration that evening, called Undivided. It's a powerful song. The words are incredible. And here's what I will tell you. Somewhere, I think we as humans, as Americans, are good people right here. I really believe that. Somewhere along the line, we lost touch with truth. And for me, before you can start a conversation, you have to agree to come from a place of truth. That means integrity. And what we're seeing today, and we could spend, like I said, hours debating and talking about this, but from my view, we lost touch with that as a people, as a community, as a Latino, as an African American, as a Caucasian, however we identify. We lost touch with being able to listen, to being able to be willing to sit at the table and have those, as Adeeb said, those constructive debates, because it's so polarized. And I think from my perspective, I love that one verse in their song where it says, I'm tired of looking left and right, so I'm looking up above. And to me, I think if we could get back to a place of where I might not agree with your opinion or your philosophy of politics, life, whatever it is, but I'm going to treat you with respect. And my ask of you is to listen to me, to my thought, and be respectful of that. And at the end of the day, let's come together and either we've made an impact or we're going to agree to disagree. But I'm not going to hate that person because they don't believe what I believe. And I think that's the issue. And as Lorii and Adeeb both shared, we can't move forward if we're stuck in hatred. We can't. And until we're willing, each of us, to let go of those biases, to let go of that hatred that each of us have carried as a result of what we've seen. Until we're ready to do that, things won't change. But I'm optimistic. I'm the positive dude, man. I'm like, we can change this. As leaders, it's our responsibility. The media are leaders in communicating that news. You have a responsibility. We can do this.
I appreciate it. Kind words about the media. It makes me happy. By the way, Jess posted a link to that song in the chat. If any of you want to share it with anyone, there's a YouTube video there. I think everybody needs to hear it, even if they don't like country Western music. I think they would enjoy it. A question I know we need to get to, and it's a fun one. We'll leave COVID for a moment and go on to a happier topic. Let's start with Lorii. What are you most proud of in your career?
I am most proud of serving as the CEO of Denver Scholarship Foundation. This for me is an accomplishment that is not mine alone. This is a part of every job that I've ever been lucky enough to have, every influence, every familial influence and friends and mentors and guides. And I'm proud of the way that I went about the process, which was deep into researching and networking and outreaching to students and sitting in future centers with advisors and learning from the stakeholders to whom this work is particularly impactful, what is needed and what someone who sits in this seat as a white woman who works most closely with a professional staff of color and students, primarily students of color who have grown up with low income and our first generation college students. How can I be the best leader in this seat? And am I the right leader in this seat? And how do I continue to learn and stretch and grow to honor our students and our colleagues and this work in a way that is deserving of the honor of representation that I hold in serving as the CEO of Denver Scholarship Foundation.
Love that. We would all applaud. Everyone applaud. We should applaud for proud moments in careers, right? It's so fun seeing digital applause. You can't hear anything. You just picture what it sounds like. Adeeb, let's go to you. Proudest moment in your career.
I'm going to give you a couple just because it's hard for me to think back. But I've had a couple of things that I'm really proud of. I look back on when I was at the American Red Cross, just getting started in my career. We launched a program called Save a Life Denver, which placed about 2,000 automated external defibrillators across the city and county of Denver. And it was great. I mean, at the end of the day, we got them in. You can go to the zoo or the Museum of Nature and Science or the schools and Denver Public Schools or the Capitol building, and you'll see them there today. And we know now from years of data how many lives have been saved, and there've been a lot of lives saved from those devices. And it just came from kind of seeing the trends and how we can help save lives and get people trained in CPR and AED training, and knowing that years later those devices are still out there saving lives, I think is incredible. I'm also really proud of my time at United Way when we launched the Colorado Reading Corps. The Colorado Reading Corps is a program which brings AmeriCorps members into schools and provides one-on-one reading interventions on a daily basis for kids who are struggling readers from K through 3. And again, looking back now, we've serviced over 10,000 kids who are struggling readers in the state of Colorado with that program. And we all know, probably a lot of us on the call today, how important it is to be reading at proficiency by the end of 3rd grade. Data shows us that you're 5 times more likely to graduate from high school. So we know what kind of long-term effects that can have. And so I think about those kids who are now reading at grade level, and it is a pride point for me. And I think about what we did this last year with the Delta Dental Colorado Foundation. I'm really proud of how my team stepped up. I have such great people on our team, and they never really blinked an eye when we made so many pivots and so many changes. And to be a part of that team and to kind of execute the work that we did this year, I'm proud of those folks because they faced a lot of odds and a lot of obstacles, and they overcame it.
Got a first grade, got a first grade reading teacher downstairs who's probably pretty excited about that. Jesse, proudest moment of your career?
Couple of them. One, being, as an actor and a singer, I love being able to tell stories, right? Through the gift of art. And, I found a home with Su Teatro. It's a Latino theater company, a nationally recognized Latino theater company here. And I'll tell you, to be able to help audience connect and see the past in social injustice stories or social justice stories of today, to help them see it through someone else's eyes, through your craft, through your voice, your singing, your acting. It's pretty amazing, and it feels wonderful when they come up to you after your performance, because it's a tradition. All the actors go into the lobby, and we stand there to greet and thank our audience for coming out to support us, to hearing our story. And when they tell you that you touched their heart, they had never thought of it in that light. That's powerful. But I would tell you, so going back to the COVID thing, bought the building July 1st, 2019, gung ho, woohoo. February, March comes along. Mortensen, my fabulous team in Mortensen Construction, announced to me that, Jess, we're probably not going to hit the mark of opening up in May because we have to scale back to only 10 people in the building at a time per floor. And so we're like, okay, that's all right. I'm going to worry about keeping my employees employed and keeping the paychecks coming. You worry about that piece. And then to have June 22nd, we were supposed to have a big grand opening, ribbon cutting. So we had vendors lined up, partners at Denver Museum of Nature and Science, their band, and all kinds of fun stuff planned. And COVID changed that for us, right? And so instead, on June the 22nd, now keep in mind, these families had not been in the center. We had been providing telehealth, but they had not had one-on-one from March until we opened our doors here. And it was a soft opening. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most magical moments, because we had moms bringing in their babies. The little kids were jumping up and down because they were like, oh my God, this is my new school, right? The moms were crying. Our therapists were crying. Because I think what makes me so proud of that moment was that it was such a realization of how much we need each other as people. And I think going back to the previous question that Tim asked, how can we bridge that emotional, political divide? We have to stop and remember, we need one another. We're human beings, need that physical touch. We need that physical connection. So opening up this center for me is probably one of my proudest accomplishments. And I didn't do it alone. And I always say that, I always get the recognition, Jesse, and no, it wasn't just Jesse. It was so many people. It was my staff. It was who stayed up late at night, going through blueprints, designing, figuring out how do we utilize and maximize this space to create what is now considered nationally a state-of-the-art facility that is changing the landscape on how we treat autism. That's powerful stuff, man.
Very quickly, tell us about the brick wall behind you, because you were very proud of that earlier in the mic check. What's up with the brick wall?
So I invite everyone on this call, come and take a tour of Firefly when COVID settles down, of course. This building was built in 1947, and it had been covered up, right? The outside had remained the same, and the neighborhood were very worried that they didn't want the building to change because it was so beautiful. And I committed to them, and so did my leadership team. We committed to them that we would never do that our intent was to redesign the interior. So if you come and take a tour, and I invite you to come and take a tour, you come and take a tour, and you're going to see what we did is we exposed a lot of the original aspects of this beautiful building to show the beauty. Let me tilt this up. See, like we removed the drop ceilings to create, it's kind of like a fun industrial part, but this building is such a beautiful building. The windows behind me, it's a rounded rotunda, which you don't see anymore. And so, yeah, we're really proud of this building. It's at 2001 Hoyt Street
in Lakewood. And I invite anybody to drive by or to set up a time to come and take a tour. It's gorgeous.
Love that. It looks great. I love the exposed brick. I know Elizabeth is going to kill me, but we're going to go to one more question because I think I had a 4:30 hard out. So if you guys could be quick, be quick. A private chat question came in. So on the text line, they're asking, can one of the questions be in regards to what each of you did during COVID to make a difference in the community? And Lorii, let's start with you.
My hope, at least, is that I've been very lucky to benefit from the gift of a new family. I have bonus kids and an amazing partner. And over the course of COVID, have spent a lot more time with them, which I'm hopeful is giving back in some way to them. And we have been dedicated Project Angel Heart delivery drivers as well. I've been very involved with Project Angel Heart for a long time that provide medically tailored meals to people coping with life-threatening illness. And during this time, access to food, healthy food in particular, is in incredible need.
As I'm looking at my script, very, very nice. Adeeb, how about you?
You know, aside from what we did at the foundation, one of the things I'm really proud of was being part of the Governor's Relief Fund, COVID Relief Fund. You know, we ended up distributing in 2020 over $20 million that was raised by the philanthropic community as well as individual donors across the state of Colorado. And then it was up to us. I was on the leadership council, but also on one of the specific grant review committees to review those grants. We had about 7 cycles, and every cycle I'd get about 60 or 70 of these grants to go through and review. And we had only about 2.5 days to turn those around. And so being able to review all of that, taking all that data, score them all, and learn so much about the struggles of what was happening across the state, you know, it was incredible. It honestly caused me so much stress. I threw my back out because you just read all of this need that's out there, and it takes a toll on you after a while. But being a part of that and part of that team that was able to respond quickly, was able to prioritize need, was able to prioritize diverse communities and get those dollars out the door was definitely a great part of this year. I want to give one shout out though to somebody who I saw on the participant list, and that was Greg Geisler. Greg was my first boss when I started at the Red Cross, and he taught me what it meant to be part of this community. I didn't know anything about Denver. I didn't know anything about nonprofits. And Greg took me around and introduced me to everybody. And he meant a great deal to me to get more involved and to meet people and to feel like I was part of something. And so I just want to give a shout out to Greg.
There you go. Silent clap for Greg. Jesse, how about you? One thing you've done in the community for during this era of COVID?
Well, first of all, again, like my peers, I want to express my thanks to you, to 9 News, to BBVA, and the Denver Leadership Foundation for this opportunity. This has been amazing. It's such a wonderful experience. But I'll tell you, one of the most impactful things that I think for me, that as I think, is that we continue to provide services to our families and to other families who are losing services. And if you know anything about autism, depending on how it's impacted your baby, when you go without those services that they depend on day in and day out to help them learn to cope with certain behaviors that their autism brings about, to support the families, it's so amazing when you get response from families that tell you that you made a difference in the darkest times that we had ever faced in our lives, because you continued to serve our families. I mean, during this, we opened a diagnostic center. For the first time, Firefly's ever done that in this beautiful center. So now we're a diagnostic center for children, for families that can't wait 2.5 years because the wait lists are so long. So I think for me, just ensuring that we would continue to be here to support our families, but not only ours, others who had lost their services.
Well, how about a giant digital hand clap for Adeeb Khan, Jesse Ogas, and Lorii Rabinowitz, our 3 finalists for 9 News Leader of the Year. Really appreciate it. What a great conversation. I don't want to steal too much time away from your breakout room conversation, so I'm going to toss it over to Elizabeth.
Steve, thank you. I would never kill you, and you should never say that out loud while live streaming. My gosh.
What was the other thing you told me earlier about, like, never shame someone for being on mute? What was the thing?
Yes, we're learning to politely tell people to come off mute so that you're not holding power over them by telling them to come off mute.
I'm using this in my next editorial meeting. It'll be great.
Oh boy, let me know how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Steve, for leading us in a really inspiring conversation. I want to thank Jesse, Adeeb, and Lorii. I know we could continue this for hours, and we will have the opportunity to for a bit longer. But a few more thank yous before we go into our breakout rooms, and then I'll explain how the breakout rooms will work. I want to thank again Steve and 9 News, an amazing partner. This partnership that just keeps growing and just keeps improving thanks to the leadership over at 9 News. Mark Cornetta, Blair, Leslie, Louisa, thank you. And Brian, who made the videos with his team. Huge shout out to 9 News. We really appreciate you. This helps get these stories out there just like we want them to be shared. So thank you. Another big thank you to Denver Business Journal. They are one of our sponsors, but also a wonderful partner to help share these stories as well. They've moderated these conversations in the past. They produce a special section for us. This year it'll be digital, going out to their entire, digital family the day after the luncheon. And this is another wonderful way we get to share the stories of these 9 News Leader of the Year finalists. So we thank you. I want to thank again BBVA. Andy, you and your team at BBVA have been true partners, thought partners. Andy's very invested in this process and this work. And so we thank you, Andy, for doing that for us and with us. Also to our visionary sponsors, one more time, KeyBank, Molson Coors Beverage Company, and TIAA. We simply would not be able to acknowledge these leaders if it weren't for you three. You're real partners in this work, and we thank you deeply for that. And now, as Dan mentioned earlier, voting is now open. Voting is open, so you and your community members that are members of the Chamber, members of Be Civic, or alumni of the Leadership Foundation may vote. One vote only, we will track it on our end, but we encourage you to get the vote out. The more the vote gets out, the more people will know about these tremendous individuals. So spread the word. We hope that you will vote. We also hope you will join us on March 10th for Leading Colorado presented by BBVA. This will be a wonderful opportunity to see the winner live and hear a few more inspirational stories about the work being done in our community. So we hope you'll join us. And now for the breakout rooms. This is fun. We hope in the reminder email you saw that if you have updated your Zoom, you will be able to choose the breakout room you'll go into. You now have an opportunity to go ask these finalists another question, 2 or 3. They are going to moderate the conversation for you and get this going. It's meant to be casual. It's meant to be fun. You can bounce around from one to the other, but we hope that you will go and learn more about them. If you don't have the new updated version of Zoom, please let us know who you would like to go see. You can do this in a number of ways. I'm kind of watching at how quickly people are moving. If you could rename your name, if you go to little dots in your photo and put the number 1 for Adeeb, number 2 for Jesse, and number 3 for Lorii. And if you'll bear with us and patiently, we will get you off to those rooms so you can go have those conversations. I'm going to change my name just so you can see how that works. I say that now, I want to make sure I can rename. So I'm just going to add, for example, the number 1 in front of my name. This is what we hope that it will look like for you. So as you're renaming, we'll slowly get you off.